here at Cypress College, we all welcome all of you here, students, faculty, administration. It's a pleasure for you to be able to host this event and to be able to moderate it. My name is Peter Matthews. I teach political science and U.S. government politics and political theory at Cypress College. And we welcome especially our students because they're so interested in learning what's going on in the world so they can make a difference in many ways. And we teach our classes in that direction to see, let's understand what's happening in the world, let's do critical thinking, let's encourage all points of view to be expressed in the class, and then challenge each other with facts and reasons. We need to bring back stability to our country's discourse, as you know, and we can begin in our classroom, right, at our campus. So I'd like to, without further ado, introduce the candidate. First of all, the people that are here, who are our president is here. President, please, sir, if you don't mind, President Thayer. And also a vice president is here, Kathleen Hyland, Dr. Hyland, Dr. Ryland, and the Dean of Social Sciences, Dr. Thomas, is over there. Dr. Thayer, thank you for all three for being here. And anyone else, especially our students, thank you and welcome. Okay, we will start with, thank you, Orange County Register, for also showing up to cover this. We really appreciate that. The newspapers are very important. News item rules are so important in democracy. Okay, without further ado, what we'll be doing is to ask a series of 6 questions. And after each question, the candidates will have 2 minutes to answer, and then 1 minute to rebut the other candidate's answer, and then move on to the next question after that. But before we start, we're going to have them introduce themselves and their campaign platforms, and give them 3 minutes each for that introduction. Introduce yourself and your campaign platform, okay? So here's the other microphone. Okay. Would you like to stand here or stand right there? Okay, fine.
Hello. Thank you very much, Cypress College, and to Peter Matthews for inviting me. General. Okay. I think there's still a problem there. All right. Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for putting this on. I really do agree that some civil debate is really something that is really lacking these days. I guess especially on our college campuses sometimes. So, well, yes, much better. Okay. All right. So, I'm running for Congress in the 46th Congressional District, which covers the cities of Santa Ana, Anaheim, Stanton, and then the western part of Orange and the southern part of Fullerton. I'm currently a professor at UC Irvine. I've been there, I'm going into my 18th year, I guess, and so I teach German literature, which is not a common field, and it's not a field that anybody really expects that I would be teaching, but I really have a love of German literature and philosophy, and I find the history fascinating, so I've been doing that for over 20 years. I decided to run for Congress because 2 reasons. One reason is I have been somewhat frustrated by the kind of monoculture that we have at on our university campuses. I'm running as a Republican, and you know, I'm hard pressed to find a single other Republican in my School of Humanities at UC Irvine. And so I guess I felt a little bit limited in terms of the scope of debate on campus, and so that's why I decided I should run for Congress, where I could maybe find a broader field to have debates and to talk about really important issues of the day. The other reason I'm running is because I do have a very specific plan for our nation, and the gist of it is that I would like to propose to phase out gradually our welfare and entitlement programs, including all of the big programs like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. We'd be grandfathering in people who are in retirement or within 30 years of retirement, so we're not getting rid of those people, the benefits to those people. But for the young people coming up, I would be replacing that whole system with a universal basic income. Works out to $16,000 a year for everybody 21 and over. So that's one of the main, really, it's the main point of my candidacy is to promote this idea. And so far, I've gotten really great support from the constituents in the district, and I'm continuing to knock on doors, talking to people about my plan and gathering support. And so I'm hoping that we can start changing the nation, really one vote at a time. So that's basically my platform and my campaign. Lots of other things I'm interested in, but we'll probably get into that in a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hannon. We have the next candidate to introduce himself, Mr. John Briscoe.
Oh, there it is.
Republican from 42nd District.
Thank you. I'm going to abstain from the microphone, although it's picking me up anyway. I'm John Briscoe. I'm the party nominee for the 42nd Congressional District, which runs from Avalon. I've been trying to think of a reason to go over there to campaign, but there's only 100 registered voters. Avalon, Long Beach, Lakewood, Signal Hill, Bellflower, Downey, and Bell Gardens, Huntington Park, Cudahy, Maywood, Vernon, with all 600 people that live there, and part of Commerce. The district is 16% Republican. Yes, I'm a Republican. The district is 55% Democrat. Bit of a disparity. And I won 35% of the vote, which is way more than my party registration. In other words, my candidacy is not based on party, it's based on what I stand for. And what I stand for are three things. One, it's in my candidate statement, the registrar of voters tried to take it out. The prices are too damned high. 30% inflation. Did any of you in here get a 30% raise? David, you get a 30% raise at UCI? No. And every point below 30% in the last 3.5 years you didn't get is money that you're losing in your buying power. You're being short-sheeted. That's a nice word for something else I would say, but it's in public here. So you're being short-sheeted. You're losing, and losing every day. Inflation is the most insidious, nasty, awful thing. It's a way to pay off the national debt. Our national debt now, the interest on our $1 trillion Joe Biden inflation bill, the interest is the same size as our military spending. I don't know if you all knew that. The interest just to pay off the money that caused the inflation because the money supply increased, the interest is the same size as the total military budget. These are awful things. I'm big into details. Because it's one thing when you look at the big top thing, but it's another. You've all heard about the bipartisan amnesty, or not amnesty, that's what it was, the bipartisan immigration bill they wanted to pass. Well, there's a lot of reasons that people didn't vote for it in Congress because, one, it had a clause in there that 5,000 people could stream across the border every day, undocumented, know nothing, from Mexico, because it said a contiguous country. Unlimited anybody else in the world. Well, people didn't think that was such a good idea. So just because it was bipartisan doesn't mean it was good. Anyway, the second reason I'm running, the thing I'm standing for, because I have people helping me, it's really wonderful, is parent rights. Parents have a right to raise their children. People don't know this. The Supreme Court has ruled that parents can withhold medical treatment for their children to the point of mortality, to the point of the child dying. Christian Scientist comes to mind as an example. It's not as horrible as it sounds, but that actually is a case that went there. So parents have a right to raise their children. Parents have a right to know what's going on with their children in school, at school, all the time. 3 is family safety. And the two big moving parts underneath that broad title, family safety, is one, homelessness. And in Long Beach, which is the major part of my district, homelessness, there's people sleeping on the curbs and everything everywhere. Homelessness, you don't want your kids walking to school amongst Old English 800. Thank you. And then also, it's don't defund the police. So those are my 3 candidate platforms. It's in my candidate statement. And those are the things that we are running on to make our community safer and better.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John Briscoe. Back to Dr. David Penn. Okay, now we begin with the first question of the issues. And the first question, I'll read it off to the candidates, so they'll answer it. And they will have 2 minutes to answer the first question. I'm sorry, 2 minutes to answer, and then 1 minute to rebut the other candidate's answer. Okay, here we are. California's master plan for higher education was implemented by Governor Pat Brown and the state legislature in 1960. Under it, and through the 1970s, California's in-state students enjoyed tuition-free higher education. When I taught at Foothill College and San Francisco City College in the 1970s, my students paid no tuition, only a small $6 fee. Question is, do you support tuition-free college and university? as currently available in Europe and previously in California, in the 1960s and 70s, under California's Master Plan for Higher Education? And how would you pay for it, if you do? Thank you.
So I would not support free tuition for students. I think part of the reason is that it would be paid for by taxpayers. It wouldn't be free, obviously. It would be paid for by taxpayers, and there are plenty of young people that aren't going to college, I believe that all of our young people should be getting the same kind of subsidy as everybody else. And in fact, with the plan I have, I would be introducing this universal basic income of $16,000 a year for everybody 21 and over. That includes students, it includes non-students, it includes people who are working, it includes people who are not working. And so this would be a plan that would provide this kind of aid to everyone. And if they chose to go to college, they could use this money to go to college. If they chose, if they wanted, I'm delaying it until they're 21 to give them a chance to develop some work experience before they get this. And to get used to working, but if they want to start college at 18, then they could be taking out private loans against their universal basic income in the future. So I think rather than subsidizing a particular path for people, college, which is really not right for everybody, we should be subsidizing people themselves. So that's my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parent. Rebut. John?
Oh, the rebut immediately?
Yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You answered the question first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just checking.
My fault.
That'd be 1 minute versus 2. There's nothing for free. My opponent, Roberto Garcia's middle name is free, 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 free. He wants free student loans, forgive them all. Free. He said housing is a right. Housing is a right. I don't know where he got that from, but it's his position. He wants free Medicare and Social Security, for example, will be broke and bankrupt in 10 years, maybe 12 or 15 or even less. What does that mean? It means that everybody gets a 20% cut in their Social Security and Medicare. I don't know if you all knew that. My opponent wants to leave Social Security and Medicare exactly the same as it was. I'm saying, no, there's no free anything. There's no free college either. And college is not for everybody. There's trade schools. There's schools that you can learn a useful job application like general aviation and things like that. This, where we're sitting, is the perfect, wonderful example of a reasonable path to higher education. I would consider this, I don't mean to be mean, administrators, but training wheels. This is where students out of a high school, achieving high school like Segerstrom or a struggling high school, can learn what college is like. Be responsible for your own homework, turn your assignments in, and those kinds of things, and work hard to get a good grade without being tortured with high-cost UC prices or Stanford prices. Then they can go from here pretty much wherever they want with a clean slate going in for GPA, and then also with 2 solid good years of training, or 3 or 4 years if they have to work while they go here to support themselves at age 18, 19, and 20. So my view is college ain't free, and if it's free, tuition free, the taxpayers are going to pay for it, and there's no money. There just isn't the money for that kind of thing, although the devil's in the details again. My son went to college at Vanguard University, the small college in Costa Mesa. His roommate needed some help, and so we co-signed a loan that he was able to finish out his 4-year degree. And I never looked at the loan, and he actually paid it all off, but there were some tumultuous times in the meanwhile. And I saw the loan payment. That loan payment that he was making was at 14%, it's a Discover loan, Discover card, 14% interest. 14%, I was stunned. So what happened is the federal government stepped in to help, and they would loan that money to anybody at 14%. The federal government stepped in, wrote the student loan program, made it so you couldn't cheat and duck out with a bankruptcy, and the interest rates are much lower, but it has to be paid off. And that's what people don't like. So no, college is not free. The current system isn't really working. You have to pay it off. You can't just ditch. That's my conclusion.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's time for rebuttal. We'll start beginning with you. You can rebut him, and then he can rebut you. And we'll switch the order after that. Okay? Thank you.
How about I ring the bell at 30 seconds so that there's no confusion?
Okay. He talks too much.
So I guess I'm in broad agreement with my colleague here. The only thing that I would add is that we have a current system of government programs, including all the ones I mentioned, Medicare, Medicaid, student loans, housing vouchers, food stamps, cost about $4 trillion a year. So I do think that money really is better spent by the people themselves. So that's why if you take $4 trillion a year and you divide it by 225 million Americans 21 or over, you actually get like $17,700 per person every year. And I've set my university fee at $16,000 with some tweaks in order to save money. So one of the things that John mentioned is our deficit and our debt, which is ballooning. So under my plan, we would be cutting that by $800 billion a year. Trying to pay down the debt at the same time as essentially lowering taxes for many people. Which, I mean, the universal-based income, you have to really look at it as a tax cut for most people. It is a sort of a refundable tax cut for people on the lower end of the income scale. But I think that's fair enough. It's really responding to some of these issues that John has brought up about our national debt and about inflation. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You can just leave it there. Unless you have to have sound for the recording and the masses. Hello out there. Okay, can you hear me? All righty.
Again, I'll ring the bell 30 seconds before.
Does it mean I'm supposed to stop, or you're just going to ring it?
I'll ring it, and then you got 30 seconds after that, and I'll ring it twice. You're over.
Inflation is so insidious. The Federal Reserve is charged with keeping inflation at 2%. We have people in here who are marketing people and experts at that kind of thing. 2%. So what is 2% over 10 years? I think it's 2 times 10. That's 20%. So any plan that talks about $16,000 today is going to be way bigger by 20% in just 10 years or more. Because this, other than when Trump was president, this government has failed to provide 2% inflation forever or never or a long time. So if the guaranteed annual income means you got to cut a bunch of other stuff, I would rather see things like Social Security and Medicare starting point being 69 and then 71. People are living longer, healthier lives, smoking like we used to have. That will fix those problems if we have the testicular temerity, or whatever that means. If we have the nerve to go forward and fix the problem and change it, because young people are going to be around. The dying age when Social Security was put in 1939 was 65. So you reach 65 and you die a year later. That's a great program. It's really not nice. Now people live, the average man lives to be 82, the average woman 84. It's unsustainable. With regards to college and paying for it, the taxpayers in California already tax more than any other state in the country. It's too much and too big. The problem is not the free tuition. The problem is a lot of people don't belong in college that are there, and then they drop out. So they're using resources that could be better invested in the students that are going to be there and stay there. What's the graduation rate? But I don't want to take people out who would like to try school. That's why community college is such a fabulous place for students to go from high school into college. This is a genuine, real college. Your Western Association of Schools and Colleges accredited. You are an accredited degree institution. You can earn an AA here. I'm an advocate for this program for community colleges, and that's the way to go. And shoving people off into four-year institutions when they may not be prepared underneath is not the right thing to do. And giving it for free is not the right thing to do. It's not good for the student, and it's not good for California and our overtaxed economy. I didn't hear the bell ring. I can keep talking. All right.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I'm going to talk for 30 seconds.
No, you have 30 seconds.
Brett, I'm going to give you this so you can keep track of that better. I've done it. Okay, John, you had to say on that? Okay, thank you very much. And the term was tuition-free higher education, which would include cosmetology school, trade school. It wasn't just tuition-free college in question, but thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Well taken. Question number 2, gentlemen. With a current inflation rate of 3.5% and an unemployment rate of 3.8%, the economy may seem to be doing well. However, according to the California Legislative Analyst's Office, prices have increased 20% since 2020, while wages increased by only 12%. What will you do in Congress to bring prices down, especially for groceries and housing? Let's switch off here. Give you the first shot.
First shot, delightfully so. The prices are too damn high. Got the takeoff on the rent's too damn high, but it's already too damn high too. The prices are too damn high. I made the registrar's office, they said we're not going to print that word damn, D-A-M-M-E-D, because it's a swear word. And I said, oh, it's in the Bible. The Bible's full of swear words. And they, well, no. I said, write a legal opinion and I'll abide by it. And the legal opinion never appeared, and my campaign statement stayed in. The prices are too damn high. The prices are too damn high because we spent trillions of dollars on the Biden inflation. It's correctly named the Biden Inflation Act because it created all this inflation, the supply of money flooding in on a lot of green projects that haven't even started yet. The whole shovel-ready thing is cock and bull. The way we measure inflation is the important part. The government, the Fed, changed under Obama the way we measure inflation and calculate it from the old way to the new current way. And the new current way diminishes inflation that people, wait, you're not taking notes back there. Hello? No notes? No. Diminishes the inflation. So the inflation rate we have today, I heard 7%, I've heard 10. The inflation rate we have today is really more like 15%, almost double what the official rate is based on the old calculation versus the new. Oh, isn't that nice? The government can now claim lower inflation is really there. The people in my district, the 42nd Congressional District, hardworking people, is 50% Hispanic. And these people are, most of them, a lot of them are immigrants, first and second generation, working 2 jobs. These people can't afford a 30% inflation over the course of 3 years. They can't afford any inflation. $6 a gallon gasoline to go take care of your commute to work or to take care of gardening or to take care of other jobs. It doesn't work. $6 a dozen eggs doesn't work. It's a big problem. So in my world of things, the inflation is a supply of money way, way too big, too much. So we have to cut the debt because that's how we paid for it. Well, we borrowed from China. That's brilliant. We'll borrow from the supposed national. My daughter-in-law is a Chinese national, by the way. So I'm not against Chinese people. Oh, wonderful, wonderful lady. She lives here. I have a grandson too, an 18-month-old grandson. The Chinese are loaning us all the money to dig our own grave. We need to dig ourselves out of the grave, start to pay off the national debt, and that's going to happen not with higher taxes. That's going to happen with reduced spending. I'm a low-income housing provider. I provide housing to a whole bunch of Section 8 HUD certificates. Personally, me. I have 12 or 13 VASH tenants. Do you know what VASH is? It stands there. It's homeless veterans. It's Veterans Assistance Support Housing. Homeless veterans, homeless, very, very poor, who get into the VASH program at the hospital, and I get 3 more minutes?
You got 30 seconds.
And then they get in the front of the line for a Section 8 certificate, because normal people have to wait for 5 and 10 years to get a certificate, because everybody likes free stuff. And they get housed and they get checked. They must be sober and stay sober. So anyway, they're really, that's heartwarming for me. They're homeless veterans where they're renting from me as a seniors building. So they're beyond sex, drug, and rock and roll. They've cleaned up their life, and they're living a nice life for the first time ever. Anyway, we need to cut the programs that are sucking the money out of the economy.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, so I do agree that a lot of the cause for the inflation that we're seeing today has been a lot of government spending. Right now, we have this enormous deficit, over $1 trillion a year, and it's growing the national debt. So that's the difficulty, though, is that Congress has really had a very difficult time cutting our government spending at all. And so even if there have been cuts on the table, it's really a matter of like maybe billions of dollars rather than trillions of dollars that we really need to be saving. So I'm going to go back to my plan again and just indicate that with my plan, because I need to eliminate all of these government programs. Basically, more than 50% of the government that exists now. This is $4 trillion a year, and essentially, cutting that is really, I think, going to do a lot for inflation. It's again, it is returning money to the people. That money, obviously, you have to, once you cut government spending, you have to figure out what to do with that money. And my solution is just to pass it out equally to everybody. And in a way that we're also going to be reducing our deficits. Now, in addition to that, John brought up the Inflation Reduction Act, and I agree with him, that a lot of that money, subsidies to corporations, is also contributing to inflation by creating more government spending that devalues our currency. So I would agree with really getting rid of corporate welfare. I mean, I do believe that corporate welfare is not something that we need to be doing. We should allow. I mean, one of the main focuses of the Inflation Reduction Act has been climate change, but the particular strategy of solving it, of directing money at very particular industries, has actually been really counterproductive. Rather than really going at the problem at the root, where we're saying we want to reduce carbon, we're trying to manipulate the market in order to have some particular outcomes, and we really actually haven't reduced our carbon emissions through these programs. Rather than that, I would support something like a carbon tax, which really directs market forces at the problem of reducing our carbon emissions, rather than having the government pick and choose particular corporations and companies to support and subsidize, and therefore increasing our problem with inflation.
Thank you both for those answers, just comments. I would like to point out one thing. Is it your turn to rebut? Brett? What's next?
I get my 1 minute.
I'm not going to the next question, pardon?
I get my 1 minute, right?
Absolutely. You get it? I just want to make a comment about it.
Okay.
No,
No comment.
you do it first. No, we don't be, well,
How
be
did
fair.
they-
Let's be fair. I'll comment on both of you. Go right ahead.
Sorry, the 2-for-1 comment.
Go right ahead.
My opponent, Roberto Garcia, I think his middle name is free. Everything free. Roberto, free, gratis, Garcia. One of those things he uses, and it's an annoyance, is investment. We're going to invest our federal government money. He's a congressman now. Invest our federal government money. Invest in this, invest in that. There's no such thing as investment of government money when you're an elected official. It's spending, 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 not investing, investing, investing. So he's spending money on favored programs. He's not investing any money. There's no return on investment. The government doesn't get a return on its investment. It just sucks money out of the taxpayer's pocket or out of China's pocket, and then out of our pocket with inflation to spend on favored businesses and industries. So I would say that the problem is inflation, and the government talks, the Fed talks about inflation's coming down, inflation. What it implies to unsophisticated people is, oh, we're going to go back 30%. Things will be like they were 4 years ago. And that's not what it's implying at all. There ain't going to be any 30% reduction in prices. It's still going up at 3.5%, almost 4% by the current measurement. And that, at 10 years, is 40%. In 10 years, everything is 40% higher and more expensive. Think about that. And nobody's going to get 40% raises in that period of time. It's not investing, it's spending. And the spending has to be stopped and cut. And then we have to pay down the debt to stop the interest. It's the same size as the U.S. military.
Okay, now, thank you very much, John. And David, I just want to mention something that was overlooked in that response from both of you, and that is there is another cause of inflation that needs to be touched upon, very importantly, and many experts have done said this. Inflation also is caused by semi-monopolistic practices by big businesses. When the meat processing industry only has 4 or 5 companies controlling over 80% of the market, that is a recipe for coordinating prices and raising prices together. When your gasoline or oil companies have stations on the corner of the block, they don't have to go very far to look across the block and say, oh, ARCO just raised their price by 10 cents or 3 cents. We'll raise ours by 2 cents. So just keep in mind, that's something that's not talked about too much by certain points of view. That monopolistic and oligopolistic practices, when few companies corner the market, they can raise prices together. In fact, President Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican president, was called a trust buster because he agreed to break up those trusts so they could truly compete and lower the prices. So I mentioned that. Let's go on to the next question, please. Okay, question number 3. This is dear to my heart. According to the Community College League of California, in 2023, 47% of California community college students reported food insecurity, 58% reported housing insecurity, 24% reported having been homeless. In the past year, as a congressperson, how will you address this crisis? Okay. Let's see, your turn.
You go first next.
Again, I guess you know what I do want to avoid doing is again trying to create new government programs to address individual problems. So part of the idea of this universal basic income is to give young people freedom, but also to instill in them a sense of responsibility. Because as you know, instead of raising the Social Security age, as John had indicated as a solution to our problem with Social Security, I'm actually lowering it to 21. It's going to be a small amount, a limited amount. So it's not enough. Well, it could be conceivably enough to live on if you get together, right? So 2 people, $33,000 a year. But in that way, it does support things like families, people cooperating, living together. And in general, I think that's the way we should really think about how to help people who are experiencing food insecurity or housing insecurity, is to put this money back into communities. If every single person is getting this money, everybody's going to be helped by each other. And people will have a responsibility to take care of themselves. They're going to have the wherewithal to take care of themselves. They'll have the basic ability to make of their lives what they want to make of their lives. So really, instead of being focused on that kind of insecurity, they would have a basis upon which to build.
Thank you so much. John, your turn.
Unlike my congressional opponent, Roberto Garcia, there is no right to housing. So housing insecurity comes to me as a problem with mom and dad not willing to take you in, a problem of aspirational education way far from where you grew up and lived at Stanford, and now you're down here and you didn't get a scholarship. I don't know what housing insecurity means. It's not great, but it means you may have to work part-time, you may have to take 6 years to earn your 4-year degree, which is actually 5 years is the number now from what I've read. So housing insecurity is an SAT test word, an amorphous Pillsbury Doughboy fluffy thing that doesn't really mean a whole lot. It could be any number of things. Food insecurity, you can get food stamps, you can get free food. My office and my units are in downtown Long Beach, and there are several places that give away buckets of food every day. That's their mission. They're religious and faith-based places. There's no shortage of food if you want to go out of your way and go get it and pick it up and then use it. Easy food, no. But there is food out there. This country is awash in food. There's no food shortage in our country. It's a distribution and process and channel getting it to people. So the food and the housing insecurity are specious. I don't see those as being issues that should take up congressional time. Those are things, the food we have figured out. If you get off your sassafras and go find the free food places, and the housing is something you'll have to figure out. You have to have roommates, maybe 3 roommates, maybe 4. Oh, I don't want roommates. Well, too bad. Those are solutions and they're out there. They don't require congressional intervention, is my point.
So, Ron did indicate that he supports things like food stamps, which actually I would like to get rid of and eliminate, because one of the things about the food stamp program is that as you earn income, you're going to be losing your food stamps. And so there's an inherent kind of motivation for people to avoid income or avoid illegal income in order to keep benefits like food stamps, like disability, like housing vouchers. And so one of the ideas that I have with this universal basic income is to really avoid any kind of disincentive to work. And this is something where working people would get this money, non-working people would get this money. And if you think about it, I think, you know, for the young people today, I mean, who doesn't want to have this $16,000 every year? Or basically, it's like, well, I've got it split up into $1,000 a month going to your bank account and another $4,000 a year as a health insurance voucher so that everybody would have health insurance but in the private market. Thanks.
Thank you both. Your turn to rebut.
I can't believe that you. I'm here. Hello, I'm in the room. There's no free stuff. Inflation is horrible. It makes the whole housing, it makes the whole everything, medical, everything worse. And at 30%, there's no catch-up in there. I'll give you an example. The Southwest Airlines pilots just negotiated a new 4-year wage pact. They got 34% increase in wages. Whoa, that's a big increase. When I heard that, I thought, holy socks, that's a great raise to get. Except, think about it, this is an inflation lecture. They had no wage increase the last 4 years. They got a 4-year contract for 34%. What's 34% divided by 8 years? And the answer is, it's not very much. It's a 4% raise, really. Does 4% make up for the 7 and 8% loss? The answer is no. So inflation must be cured. The only way you can cure it is by stopping spending the money. And we need to cut the budgets.
Okay, thank you. Question number 4. As a congressperson, how will you support full reproductive freedom for American women? And could you share your position on the Life at Conception Act?
Do I need that microphone? I was at the Hillary Fest that turned out to be the Women's Day Fest in 2016. And I asked 30 women, why are you marching? The pink pussy hat thing and all that stuff in DC. The answer I got back from every single one, just random people, was, I'm marching for women's rights. I said, oh, okay. What rights do men have that women don't have? None, I guess. So then why are you here? There's like thousands of all of you out there. And the answer back was, I'm here for a woman's right to choose. That was the answer I got from every single one. And I've used this line of questioning many other times. So I have 4 questions I ask, and I would ask everybody to think about the answer. You don't have to answer them, but 1, do you believe in post-birth abortion? The governor of Virginia did. He said that's what he thought should happen. The baby should pop out. You wait a day late and $1 too short, and you lay it on a towel, and you decide if you're going to piss the brain, P-I-T-H, piss the brain like a frog on a dissecting mat and kill it, or do you put it up for adoption, or do you keep it? There's a doctor in jail in Philadelphia for post-birth abortions. So it's murder. In this country, it's still murder too. I asked, do you believe in late-term abortions? Little guys swimming around, kicking, a healthy fetus, a healthy baby. And people go, no, not the last 3 months, it's on its way. 4, I asked if Stephen Hawking should have been killed. Should Stephen Hawking have been killed? He's a genetic defect. Smartest man in the world, as I'm told. How many of you, do you all know who Stephen Hawking is? Raise your hand. Should he have been killed in utero because he was a genetic defect? And everybody says no, he should not have been, and he wasn't, thank goodness. 4th question I ask is, do you believe in 50% black genocide rate? You go, oh my gosh, what's that mean? 1 out of every 2 babies aborted is African American. We know that because abortions and births are recorded by race. Is that a good thing? The answer is no. It's a horrible thing. People don't believe me. You can go look it up. It's a horrible thing. All African American women are not having abortions. It's a smaller number having multiple abortions, using abortion as birth control, which is not good either. Anyway, I ask those questions, and what it does is it pushes things back down to like the 1st trimester, because those other things happen later on. So my answer is, I don't have an answer. I think birth and babies are sacred, and they're wonderful. We should protect them. I can get it down to 1st trimester, and I would advocate, don't kill them. Don't make the babies. Don't make the babies. Do what you need to do to not have a baby in the first place. And then we don't have to worry about abortion. There it is.
Okay, your answer, please.
This is obviously a very different question. There are two things involved. I mean, clearly there's a life of a child at stake, and it's something that we should all be concerned about, very seriously. On the other hand, there's obviously also the life of the mother, and in both the physical sense, obviously there's some abortions that are conducted in order to save the life of the mother. But in general, I mean, just the possibilities of a mother and the choices that she has. And I would really support giving more choices to mothers, promoting different means of adoption and giving choices to mothers so they're not forced into abortion. I really would like to reduce that abortion rate as much as possible. The other point, though, I think, is that we have had this Supreme Court decision that has brought the issue of abortion back to the states, and I think that in some sense is a good thing. It puts the issue of abortion in the hands of citizens and politics and debates about these issues, and I think it's a productive debate that people need to have. And so I'm not going to make a pronouncement about a particular point in which abortion should be legal, illegal. But I do support the fact that we're having this discussion, that individual states are making decisions. It's a difficult one. It's a very personal one. It's also a very moral one. And so I think it's something that we can't avoid. But it is obviously one where we have to make some decisions from the point of view not just of the mother, but also the child, and frankly also in terms of our sense of morality as a society. Okay.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. But I believe the issue has to be addressed from a woman's point of view. We have no women up here at all.
I get 1 minute.
Not yet. Is it your turn for the minute?
The rebuttal.
Yeah.
I don't know why is that. We're not subconscious.
Here you go. Not at all. You're both Republicans anyway. But you are different and it's not good. Go ahead.
This is a devil's in the details question, and it's a living human life details question. There's all kinds of pregnancies that are shocking, ectopic, tubal, and all sorts of pregnancies that endanger the mother's life, and the fetus has no chance of surviving, and then they both die. Is that a good answer? And the answer is I don't think so. So we have ways of detecting and looking at those things, and it becomes a question of between the doctor and the woman and their decision with the guidance of laws. Oh, how about the Part A and B day after pill? And by the way, that 50% black genocide rate doesn't include Part A and B pill, just for the record, so it's bigger. That pill is not all safe. They used to have a requirement that it be administered when there's a hospital or clinic or a doctor nearby because you can have hemorrhaging. So it's a convenient solution, but there's things that go along with all of this. And none of this is easy. I'm glad we're having the discussion. Arizona's answer of no, none at all is difficult for a whole lot of reasons. And California's decision, except for post-birth abortion, is equally fraught with problems. I gave you the 4 questions that you should ask yourself. So we need to do a lot more research and a lot more detail into those difficult decisions in that first trimester that create life and death situations for healthy women.
Okay, as I said earlier, we don't have any women up here, unfortunately. Everyone was invited, and there was a woman involved who was also in office who can make it. But we need a point of view that's not been expressed here, and that is the question of the privacy. And I know the Supreme Court decided there was no right to privacy in the Constitution. I think they were erroneously did that. But still, the issue in America is freedom of conscience. That's a major issue of the First Amendment. And so the idea is to allow individuals, women, to make their own decision with their help of their doctor, if need be. But it should be up to them. And when you say, well, discussion is all good about it, the states have a chance to discuss it now. We have to mention that there still are people right now in about 20 states where it's been restricted, abortion has been restricted entirely, or completely, as in the case of Arizona for a while. completely abolished. And so there's no choice whatsoever. And our women right now is health. Not just their health is in danger, but their lives are in danger as well. So I have to mention that. Let's go on to the next question, please. Number 5 is, how will you address the great divide between Republicans and Democrats, and between rich and poor in this country, and save our democracy? Let's go.
A meeting, in academia, a meeting, unbelievable.
It's a great question. I do think that the divide between Republicans and Democrats is really one of the most serious problems that we're facing today. And I guess my campaign is a lot of my campaign is about trying to overcome that divide. By combining a Republican idea of reducing the size of government and a Democratic idea of a universal basic income. I'm trying to take ideas from both parties and combining it into a solution that works for everybody. This is the kind of thing that I think there's hope for if we can get kind of a broad middle to agree on policies like this. And I think there's hope recently, with the bipartisan support for military aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. So I think what we need to be doing is to be promoting solutions that really work for people, whether or not they are solutions that satisfy the ideologues of extremists on either side of the party divide. And so I think if we can get that kind of cooperation going, if we can get politicians to be talking to each other, and I commend Cyprus College for promoting that idea and trying to get more discussion between parties. That's really what we need to do.
Thank you very much. John, your answer.
I think Hillary, I think Obama defined the issue very well. It's not Republican and Democrat. It's and Trump's base, if you look at the map of counties he carried in 2016, it's a swath of red across the entire country, except for the big Democrat-run liberal city areas. And the people that voted for him and went for him were that basket of deplorables. That was what he was called by Hillary. A basket full of deplorables. And Obama called them people clutching their Bibles and their guns. So picture the Bible and gun-clutching deplorables, which has nothing to do with the Republican or Democrat Party, because a lot of those people clutching their gun and their Bible and being deplorable are Democrats. They're country Democrats. And Trump got them aroused and got them to show up to vote, which was astounding, because in general they hadn't voted before, and it turned the tide. I don't see it as Republican and Democrat. Their platforms are anathema to each other. The things that they stand for are very different. In the case of my race for the 42nd, Roberto Garcia is, like I said, free, free, free. He just wrote, everybody has a right to housing. A right. Who's going to pay for that? What kind of housing? People live in their car. I was partly involved in the task force for homelessness in Huntington Beach, and learned that there's a lot of people, some number of people, who live in their vehicle all the time, and they go to these places where they can park at night and use the bathroom and take a shower and then go back out to work. There's people living in motels and hotels over on Harbor Boulevard around Disneyland, in a hotel-motel room. And when I read the paper, it was the closet was full of McDonald's and Taco Bell wrappers, because there's no kitchen in there. They can't cook for the kids. What does that mean? That particular example, and the people in the cars, they can't save up enough money for a security deposit. I'm in the rental business. I'm a licensed broker. I rent housing a lot to poor people. They can't save up the security deposit to get a place. And recently California changed its law where you can't charge any more than the first month's rent for a security deposit. We used to charge 2 months rent if they had no credit and a lousy score and those things. But now, so it's more reasonable than ever to get housing. And the difference between Republican and Democrats really isn't about the party line thing. I think it's more about the economics, the elite, college-educated, ritzy, hoi polloi, versus the deplorable, gun-toting, Bible-toting voters who say they've had enough.
Okay.
I can't debate myself.
No, that would be quite tricky. Okay, the last question. According to the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the overall U.S. military defense budget for 22-23 was $916 billion, more than the next other countries combined. According to defense spending expert William Hartung, billions of these dollars are lost in waste through cost overruns, lack of auditing, some unnecessary wars, and wasteful spending on some weapon systems that even some generals say are unnecessary. As a congressperson, how will you help to streamline defense spending and make it more cost efficient? John?
I get first dibs. Holy socks. Hot dog. The defense spending budget is huge. The guy that was president last time with the orange hair started out bagging on Europe, NATO, for not keeping their promise for decades and decades. So are you all familiar with that? They all signed a contract. They would devote 2% of their gross domestic product to military spending. And only Sweden did that. The rest all said, the US, and how many have been to Germany? Raise your hand. You have. Okay, Germany is covered with US military bases. Like, they used the Nazi bases, actually. They chiseled off the swastika. There's military bases all over Germany filled with US soldiers to help make sure they don't get invaded by Russia or now Poland. The reason I mention that is that the military uses a lot of our resources for things that aren't necessary. We don't need to defend Germany. If they'd invest in their own darn defense, if they'd invest into the 2% NATO required, I think Germany was like at 1%, laughing every year. 1% of the German gross GDP is huge. And they went and spent that on their social programs and circuses and bread. All the European countries that are in NATO need to spend what they promised to spend. I'd make them go back and make up. Have a repayment program for 20 years of lying and cheating, and depending on the US to spend our precious treasury to support them and to keep Germany safe. I get 2 more minutes?
30 seconds.
So the military problem, I believe, is one of priorities and making people keep their promises with NATO and taking resources out where we don't need them. We don't need to have 115 military missions and bases all around the world. Yes, we have 115 different military missions all over the world. They need to be brought back. We need to defend our own border, which we don't defend, people invading and flooding across. We don't need to spend all that money on all those bases all over Germany, for example.
So, I consider this to be a very serious problem. The money that we spend on foreign bases, on military aid to our allies, I think is actually money very well spent. We're entering an age in which we have adversaries in China, in Russia, in Iran, in North Korea, that are starting to cooperate with each other and developing their own vision of what the world should be like. And this kind of world that they're imagining is one that would be directly opposed to our values and the type of life that we want to lead in a liberal democracy. I do think that the situation we're in really is a kind of a revisiting of the situation the world was in the 1920s and 30s, when you had these authoritarian and totalitarian governments conquering more and more of the world. And at some point, the United States tried to stay neutral, tried to stay isolated from that, but at a certain point, that wasn't possible anymore. And the more that we delayed, the more that we did about that, the worse the problem got, and the more serious our participation in that world war had to be. So I do believe that we need to maintain our defense spending, in fact increase it perhaps, and maintain and increase military aid to our allies that are defending liberal democracy as a type of order that is not just ours, but is one that has to be spread throughout the world in order for our own government, our own economy to survive and to prosper. So that's the short answer. I have an additional answer maybe in the rebuttal to talk about specific ways to save money.
Very good. John, your rebuttal?
With 30% inflation, the military budget goes up all by itself, just to stay even Steven. In all fairness, our military should have gotten a 30% pay increase, which would be impossible to do, but they should have. I don't know if you know this, it takes 5 people, secretaries, motor pool, and so on, behind the scenes for every 1 soldier up on the front. So the military budget is more than just soldiers and bases, it's people. And the people allocation is more than you might think. How many knew that? 5 backup support staff for every 1 person on the front line. It's not like that here. At Cyprus, it's 10 frontline instructors and 1 secretary and department chair in the office. So the military spending is based on people and the whole supply system. And the budget is a difficult one to cut, but it can't stay the way it is. And it certainly can't go up, and it certainly can't afford to go up what it should go up to make a fair ending for all the enlisted people's pay that hasn't kept up with inflation. So what's the answer? We got to go back and we need to take a knife to cut out the bases we don't need, cut out the staff to support those bases, and remember, there's 5 background staff people for every 1 soldier in Germany that's stationed there. And that's the way to cut back without harming our military presence.
Thank you, John. Dave, your rebuttal, please.
Yeah, so for the reasons I outlined before, I'm really very much against the proposal that John had of trying to reduce overall our military spending. I do think, though, that it can be made more efficient, and he has indicated a place to do that in terms of the bureaucracy of the military. You know, one of the aspects of the military that has increased in the last decade has been that there's been an increasing split amongst military personnel between kind of a bureaucratic track for people in the military and an active duty track, where there's a kind of growing section of the military where the people advancing in that bureaucratic track don't really have any active duty military service behind them, and I think that needs to change. I think that that active duty military service should be really the prerequisite for advancing in the hierarchy, and I think that would make a big change in the way things are done.
Okay. Thank you so much. John, your response?
I felt like I gave my response already in the first cut. When I say reduce military spending, it ain't going to be reduced because we got the Biden Inflation Act going on with us. It'll be with us a long time. The trillions of dollars shoved into the economy, jamming prices up for military systems, for everything. Wages, for food to feed the troops. So when I say reduce the military budget, I'm saying it's got to be reduced down to take care of the inflation at 3 to 5 to 7%, whatever the real number really is. I don't mean to, but we do need to cut out things we don't need. Why do we have bases all over Germany with troops stationed there, with the 5-to-1 support staff behind them? And the answer is, we don't. Make Germany spend their beautiful, delicious economic money and growth on themselves to defend themselves, is my advocacy. Well, France, they're not going to spend anything. We don't say anything there. They kicked us out decades ago, but they should spend their 2% NATO money on themselves to protect themselves. Great Britain's really pretty okay, but they don't spend 2% either. There's places to cut, and we don't need all those military bases all over the world. We have a presence and a base with staff in, I think, 115 different countries, and it's stunning. The only one is Costa Rica has no military, and we guard their coast for them with our U.S. Coast Guard. That's a good investment. Did you all? How many knew that Costa Rica has no national military at all? None whatsoever. We guard their coast for them with our U.S. Coast Guard system, and that keeps them safe. It allows them to not spend money on military and spend it on, and it's a poor country, spend it on their people and themselves. Do these facts, are you finding these facts interesting? Raise your hand. Mm-hmm. These factoid things, yeah. Well, it's important. Devil's in the details. That's my conclusion. Okay. Be devilishly detailed.
So I think the problem with the inflation is that our military budget has not been increasing at the level of inflation, and that's been a problem. And at this point, the percentage of GDP that we're devoting for our military budget is actually relatively small by historical standards. Certainly, it's lower by a couple percentage points of GDP compared to the Cold War. But we do have to realize that we are, it's not that we're entering, we are in a Cold War. The United States is definitely competing with China in economic ways, but also in military ways. I mean, China has been increasing its defense budget continually over the last decade, and at this point, they exceed the U.S. military in terms of number of ships in many measures. And it's not that they don't have a backward military anymore. They have a very sophisticated military. They have a very sophisticated industrial base. And frankly, they're not treating the United States as if we were a partner in this department. And we need to respond to that.
Okay, thank you so much about that. A couple comments here before we wrap it up on the military and military spending. And that is, we have 1,000 military bases around the world, John, if you include everyone, even the small ones.
I was thinking country count. It's
115 countries, those where the bases are. And we have to really re-examine our foreign policy. There should be soft power used and hard power. Military is hard power. Soft power is when you have programs, well, you hate that word programs, but yeah, programs are actually programs that carry out human needs. Look at what China is doing all over the world, setting up factories.
Belt and Road, yeah.
Belt and Road Initiative, soft power. We could use a lot more of that here to help build infrastructure, education systems in global South countries that have been exploited over time. A lot we can do with our resources in the United States. President Eisenhower warned us against the inordinate influence of the military-industrial complex. The lobbying groups for the military industry are tremendous. They have too much money, in my view, and they put it into Congress and sometimes in the presidential campaign. They get rewards. So there are programs you can look at. There's a book I've written, there's a chapter 9 in my book, which is All Democracy on Steroids, which documents military, not the military, it's military industrial waste, fraud, and abuse that's in that complex. And that can be identified and hopefully will become more rational and save the taxpayer money and redirect some of that money. How about to tuition-free college and those kinds of things? Healthcare for all. That would make us a stronger country and help us be stronger in the world with soft power as well as the kind of power we need to the military, the reasonable power. Okay, this has been wonderful. We want to thank you all. And thank our leaders of our campus here, the president, our dean here still, and the other folks had to leave. But it's so nice of you to be here today and enjoy this very much. Candidates especially, thank you both for showing up here so we can have this event. And good luck to you both. Appreciate it. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Is SNG here? Is SNG here?
Southern California News Group. They were here. That was St. George Meadows.
Okay, good.
They did come for the pictures.
Okay. So SCG, not SCG. But you guys didn't take any notes. No, I was taking it on my cell phone. Couldn't you tell? They do.